Hello and welcome to a video where I'm going to be talking about VMO isolation, why I probably rate it as a real waste of time, and something that people just don't need to do. So the question here, is it a waste of time? Well, yes. And the reason for this is the VMO is entirely dependent on everything that happens above and below it, and it really has zero influence over the role it can play. It will strengthen if it's in the right place, but it has no ability to put itself in the right place. It needs the joints above and below it to do that. So for example, you can be awesome at leg extensions, have the greatest VMO strength in the world, but still squat terribly and never be able to use the VMO because you can't even align yourself, and the VMO can't change the ankle and it can't change the hip. It has zero influence over that. It really is done by completely other things. So you will always have patellofemoral problems and you'll always have knee issues no matter what you do here. All right, so I don't care what exercise the therapist or someone's shown you, it's a waste of time if you don't address the real problems which are elsewhere. I've stolen this from one of my other videos where I talked a bit about tricep pushdowns and bicep curls, but if you haven't seen that video, this is a slide from that where I talk about the problem with isolation, and people really need to grasp this idea because they're wasting so much time and energy on something that will do absolutely nothing for them. When you take a muscle and separate it from the team, and you only train it that way, it doesn't know how to work with its partners. So the partners are like the muscles that work in breaking roll. So when one contracts, one must stretch and lengthen, but it still needs strength to do so. It's what we call eccentric strength, and it needs a perfect timing for the movements that you make to be coordinated correctly so that everything stabilizes joints within where they're meant to be centrally located. For example, the hip and the ball and socket. When the timing is disrupted, nothing is centrally located and you scuff and wear things out. And really, when you're doing this, you're ignoring the real problem in the first place, which is the source of the problem. You're just really treating a symptom, and you're ignoring how the brain coordinates movements, which is what we call patterns of movements. So this is like one guy being separated from the team. He won't know how to work with the rest of them because he never trains with them. All right, so at times you may need to do it in the early stages of rehab to reactivate a muscle that's been inhibited or completely shut down, but that's about the only time you would ever use it. You would very quickly want to get out of that to get it to work with its team, and show it how to move together and enhance the motor program. That's where I was saying this is a motor program that you'll use when you walk, when you run, because that's how you need to be on single leg stance to swing your leg through. So you're using that motor program all of the time. If these joints don't know how to work together, being the ankle, the knee, the hip, the core, everything, and the brain coordinating all in a split second, it doesn't matter what you do here, it's never going to change the motor program because it's not the same program. It's just taking him there and expecting him to know what to do there when he never does it. And the only way he knows how to do it is the way he did before, which got him into the position that he's in right now. All right, so motor programs for, say, a lunge, squatting, single leg squatting require foot stability, ankle mobility, glute strength, hip mobility, core control, coordination. All of these things happen within a millisecond. All right, and you either use the right program or the faulty program. And I haven't even included the muscles here, because there's heaps of them working in synergists or in eccentric roles. So I've kept muscles out of it because it would be just too confusing to look at. But that gives you an idea of how often you're using it. And you use this to get off the floor, use this to walk upstairs, use this for running, you're using this all the time regardless of age. This is one of the first movements you get as a toddler when you go to get up off the floor to stand up. All right, so you're using this all the time. In the case of me using it as a single leg squat, this is where you can see foot stability is needed to stop excessive pronation rolling in. If that goes, then they all go. All right, so there's no point working on VMO if the minute you stand up you just excessively roll in. Your problem is a foot problem that's creating a knee injury. Same with an ankle. If it's too stiff, it doesn't have the mobility. Again, you can't actually align yourself. So again, the knee's going to end up in pain, maybe even the hip. maybe even the lower back, but it's all going to be coming from down here. VMO will activate only when all of these other things are done. So if it's coming from the hip and the hip's rolling you in and you don't have glute control, you're going to have problems. If you don't have good spinal control and ultimately coordination. So you can see here overpronating, internally rotate, shifts inward and so forth. Alright, so I'm going to show you a quick video of me in the gym to give you an even better idea and really hone this in for you. You can see it in real action. So let's have a quick look at that. I'm just showing you because you can sort of see a good example of what my legs, my muscles look like. You can sort of see the VMO itself has that little teardrop name they give it where it where it's working there, and there's the vastus lateralis on the outside. So basically, usually what happens is the lateralis, the ITB, really dominate over the VMO because it's such a smaller, weaker muscle, and it starts to pull the patella out to the outside, and that's where you get ITB friction, but you get patellofemoral tracking problems. But the real problem is to do with the joints above and below the knee itself, and you'll see why when I show you how it works. That right now is where my hips have lost their control. So the hip flexors and the adductors are like a groin, work as a team together to provide too much internal rotation. So you can see that's internal rotation. The muscles that oppose that are the glutes, who provide external rotation of the hip. When the glutes become inhibited and lazy, and it happens very easily because of the hips dominating over them, you'll see this internal rotation. And when that happens, now you can see where my knee has moved. So there is no point strengthening the VMO because it's not, the minute I stand up, I'm going to move into this poorly designed structure. This is where ACL tears happen, all your patellofemoral problems. Just about every knee injury you will sort of see this problem happening. Alright, so my foot has sort of remained stable here, and it's all being driven by a poor hip function. Alright, so I can't strengthen the VMO as I'm showing there because it's inhibited. It cannot function in that alignment. It can only function in that alignment, but it cannot do the correction what I just did. The VMO cannot change my hip rotation outwards. That is driven by the glutes if that's the weakness. Now the other thing you can't ignore is also the foot at the bottom there, right? So and I'm sort of showing you, there's my VMO, right? So that's a good alignment there. That's a nice sort of structurally aligned leg, right? So now I'm going to show you what it looks like when the foot, and you'll see it better from side on. So here's a good foot stability, and that's poor foot stability. Can you see where I've flattened right out, and then I've come up again? So there I've got my natural arch. If I just go back to that, so that is excessive pronation. That's weak, lazy feet that are also going to create alignment problems. So my hip and glutes might be quite fine, but my ankle and my feet are not. All right. So this is where you'll see, and that's a good structural alignment. That's where I'm going to be using my big toe. I've got my natural arch there. I've got the spring in my foot, and everything above it will work as it should. You won't see that from side on, but you will see it from front on. So if I show you now what this looks like when it's working, and I see me pointing at my big toe there. If I just take you back, all right. So the big toe has got to be down, and if that stays in this natural alignment, you'll see there's my knee is now facing the front again. All right. So everything's across there, and you'll see the VMO starts to show muscle tone again, but you won't see the muscle tone if it internally rotates from the ankle or the hip. All right, so it has to have sort of like a torsion effect. If I go back to the beginning, right back to here, you'll see when I'm here, the big toe is pointing down, the hips are externally rotating, and it's creating this real whipping torsion around there, and it's that torsion that you'll see the muscle tone evenly distributed through both sides with activation there and activation there. So stable at the bottom and stable at the top, and that's the only way I'll get that in the middle. All right, so don't waste your time doing all of this stuff here if you're forgetting to do that and that. All right. So I hope that sort of really helps to get you to understand where you really need to look. The VMO stuff you can do right at the very end after you've got all the glutes and the ankles and the feet working first. All right. Until that point, it's just a waste of time. You'll just go nowhere. All right. So I'll put a lot of links in the description under this video here, so to help you to sort of find more information about this. But yeah, again, go to our website and you'll find stacks of information. Okay, so I hope that sort of helped you to sort of see it in real time instead of me just talking to static pictures here. So like I mentioned before, you may need static isolated exercise. So for example, a clam glute isolation drill, because your glutes are just so weak you can't isolate them in a standing position. You may have to do that here. I would do this, not a VMO exercise though, because there'd be no point doing the VMO exercise and you still have weak glutes, because you're just going it's going to do nothing. But I wouldn't want to spend too much time here. I'd want to get over to the integrated movement as soon as I can. So I would use this in conjunction with that, and possibly a stack of mobility and stability drills in between. All right. So in summary, forget the VMO. Just don't worry about it. Focus on your glutes, your foot stability, ankle mobility. Use mobility drills for the ankle, for the hips. Use stability drills to combine them together. Activation drills of the glutes, the core, the foot. Learn how to do single leg squat. Learn how to do lunges. Learn how to do deadlifts. Learn how to run if you're a runner with a midfoot strike and not a heel strike. That's, again, like you could do all of these things and go back to running with a heel strike and undo it all and just end up back to where you started. All right. So if you do all of these things, you will strengthen your VMO without having to waste your time trying to figure out how to isolate it. It's just such a stupid thing to do. You just won't get anywhere doing that. It's a waste of time, because you're not. It's really all of these things that you really need to focus on. So if you have any questions about that, or you want to know more, I would highly suggest get our online program that goes through it. If you're international, if you're in Melbourne, you can come and book in for an assessment with us, and we can guide you on a program. If you're overseas, this is the next best thing, where I have programs and all that laid out for your assessments to help guide you on what you need to do. There's also stacks of free reports. Make sure you check the description below this video, because I'll have the links in there for you, so you can just grab them straight away. All right, so I hope this video helps explain that, and yeah, and I look forward to seeing you on our next one.